Everyone, this is Cara or Cara-mia, and you'll have to excuse my voice today. I'm feeling a little under the weather and I sound like a man, but it is what it is, so let's jump right in. If you're watching this video, it's because you've recently purchased the Aurora pack. So first of all, thank you so much. I am so excited about this pack. I've often felt that Lightroom can be a little bit limiting. I love to play with color, but when it comes to painting on different tones, it was really hard to do. I felt like I usually had to bring things into Photoshop. So working with Meridian, we were able to crack the code on how to add color masks into Lightroom to literally cut out the entire step of having to take anything into Photoshop and apply it to your images. And it is so exciting. And I feel like this is just opening the door into a whole new realm of possibilities on what Lightroom can do. And I'm already thinking about all the new things that we could create. So I'm very excited. But this particular pack is just, it makes my heart happy. It's all of the beautiful pastels and rainbow colors that I wish existed all the time in everyday life. And I think that there are so many applications for it, whether it's a detail shot or maybe just a funky dance shot or something with a lot of negative space, or if you're already shooting in a space with a lot of ethereal pastels. There's so many little places where you could use it, and I've been playing with it more and more and figuring out how to use it and what works and what doesn't. So you're gonna have to tag. I hope you can tag me when you start editing these because I cannot wait to see what you create with them. But okay, enough chit chat. Let's dive in. Let me show you what we're looking at here. So I'm gonna divide this little tutorial section up into a couple different spots, but first I'm gonna explain what the presets are. I'm gonna show you what each of them look like. There are 20 total. And then I'm going to talk to you about picking your focal point, and I'm going to talk to you about the 4 different packs within a pack we basically created that have the different compositions here. So there's Aurora, which means it's applied all over. Center, which means you want to center focus, left focus, right focus. I know that doesn't make any sense right now, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And I think I might have already said this, maybe not, but these are not your typical presets in the sense that you're not adjusting things like exposure, contrast, or shadows. This is something that you apply as an effect after you've already applied the preset to your image. So once you have a photo that you love and you're already feeling really good about it, this is kind of that little magic sauce, the little bit extra that you put on top of an image to take it to that next level. So let me show you first, just starting out, what all of the different colors are. And I've chosen this very generic photo of a lion statue because it's white and it will show you what the whole effects look like. So starting from the top, this is Aurora. And I'm going to show you later too that you can definitely adjust the level so it can be less strong. Like this is coming on pretty strong. So this one's Aurora. We have pastel here. Borealis. Blue Borealis. It's a little bit more subtle. There's oil spill. Oil slick. Holographic. Iridescent. Opalescent. Pearlescent. So that one's especially subtle. You can kind of see that it's a gradient, but it's very subtle. Watercolor, confetti. This one is fire opal. We have Rainbow Lights 1 and Rainbow Lights 2. And then Suncatcher 1 and Suncatcher 2, very similar, just a slight shift. Supernova, Sherbet, I love this one. And then Prism. So this is from the section where you can add everything all over. So when we're playing with this, it's because we're applying it. Let me show you what I mean by picking your composition. So this particular image that we're looking here, this lion, center focus, right? Let's say I want to apply Aurora to this particular photo. And let's say I want a little bit more of the lion's face to show. So I have 2 options. First is I can show you in the back end how you can actually create your own negative space. So for literally any image you have, if let's say, for example, like you had like a person right here in the right and the effect is covering up their face, you're like, dang it, I really love how it looks on the rest of the image, but I need that person's face to be more clear. There's a way where you can go in the back end, create a little mask with negative space and apply that to literally any image you have. So these can be used however you want. That said, doing that is a little bit of a pain. So we thought, how can we make this as easy as possible, as one click as possible for people who are playing with these? And we decided to come up with 4 different focal points with the presets themselves so that you don't have to go through and do that for every image if you don't want to. You can for more specific instances where it's needed, but for the majority of images, you should be able to make one of these work. Let me show you what I mean. So Aurora with just how it is. Nothing else covers the entire image. If I go here and I scroll down to Aurora center, so that means that I want the focal point in the center. I apply it here, you can already see the difference. This is applied all over, this is center. So center just means that this space right here is a little bit more clear. Now this will look weird on this image, but just to show you what the rest of these are, left would look like this. So like I said, strange because the point of focus is right here in the middle, but you can see this whole negative space right here would look great if you had something that was playing with the rule of thirds, you know, coming onto the screen looking right. And then same with right. Let me just apply it just to show you. Same deal. It's applied here and you have this negative space spot right here. So that's the first thing I want to show you, is that you can definitely play with all of these different compositions to figure out where you want that focal point to be. And then the next thing I'm going to show you is what to do if you do want to create your own focal point. So if one of the four we provided, so the all over, the clear in the center, the clear on the left, or the clear on the right, isn't working for you compositionally, you can go in and create your own custom masks to make the mask work for you. So if it's a little bit too dense and obscuring something that you want to be more clear, you can go in and make a little clear spot anywhere that you need to, and it's pretty simple. So to do that, let's get a different image as an example. I am thinking, let's do one of these guys. Okay, so this image from the beginning is already a little bit hazy. It's dreamlike. That's how I shot it. That's how I wanted it. But let's say that I add, so we're going to go to Aurora all over, just to illustrate the point. And let's apply Borealis. And while I think this is still cool, I feel like we're losing a little bit of her, and I want her to be a little bit more prevalent. So to go in and do that, you're going to click right here to go into your masks. And you're going to see that you have a blue channel, a green channel, and a red channel. And you need to do the exact same thing to all three channels if you want that spot to truly be clear. Otherwise, it's going to mess with the tone. So let's hop into the blue channel first. And you can see that there's a brush here. And basically, we're just going to subtract a little bit of that space from the mask so that there's just a little bit more clarity here. So I'm going to go in with the radial gradient. I feel like that's a good way of, if you select just the subject, I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second, but I feel like it can be a little bit too harsh. You want there to be enough of a blend between the mask and the image and the subject so that it doesn't look like clearly you have this mask on and then here's the exact like oval shaped line where it doesn't exist. Like you want it to be a little bit more feathered out. So with the radial gradient, first I'm going to show you not feathered. I'm going to create a little space. So you can see right here, if I didn't feather it, that's a pretty obvious like cutout where there isn't any effect. So instead, when I feather it, it makes it a lot more subtle. So clearly she's still the focal point here, but it's just a lot more pleasing to the eye than this clear little cutout space, which would almost look like you just erased it and it would be very obvious and not in a good way. So here's what you got to do. You created your little gradient. You're going to duplicate it. So you see radial gradient 1 copy, and you're going to drag that into the green channel. So now it exists in the green channel, and then you're going to do it again. You're going to duplicate radial gradient copy, take that copy number 2, and drag it into the red channel. So in the end, you've got the same copy in all three of them. And that probably did the trick for me pretty well, to be honest. I feel like that is a little bit more subtle than, let's add the Borealis in just so you can see. It just creates a little bit more of a space where you can see your subject. And I feel like you could probably even feather it a little bit more and maybe even make the subject a little bit less if you wanted it to be blended a bit better. But that's just to show you how to do it. I'll do it one more time. This time when I do it, I'm going to show you why we want to feather it out. Because I feel like when you don't, that's when things start to look really weird. So for example, let's apply a really powerful one on this one. I feel like Aurora is one of the ones that's pretty aggressive all over. But let's do sherbet. Okay, so for sherbet, I mean, and this is still kind of a cool effect even covering, but let's say that you really wanted your subject and the horse to not be so covered in the mask. So there's a couple options, right? If you didn't want to deal with making your own focal point at all, you could go into Aurora Center, apply sherbet, and this kind of does it for you, and it's subtle. I will say though, I feel like with this one, I almost wish there was a little bit more color up here so that it wasn't such a big line. So this might be one where I would want to go in and create my own. But let me show you what I wouldn't do. First of all, one of the ways you can go in, so I've already explained, go into your masks, and you can go in and click subtract and then create your own radial gradient. You could do other things as well though. You could brush things on, you could go by objects or people. If you go by subject, let's say I'm selecting the subject, okay? It's right there. If I do that and then I duplicate it and I drag my subject straight onto the green channel, and then I do the same thing, I duplicate it and I drag that right down into the red channel, then you have a perfect shape with the color around and then your subject. But I almost feel like this one is too stark, if that makes sense. Like I feel like you almost want a little bit more of a hazy gradient around the edges, because otherwise it kind of just looks like you stuck a horse sticker onto the image. So I feel like you do want that gradient to balance it out. Let's try that and see how it looks. I don't know if this will lend itself best to this image, but we can give it a go. So let's see, with the Aurora effect, let's do, what did we just do? Sherbet. Let's do that all over. Let's go into our masks again. We're already here. Okay. Let's see what happens by creating a radial gradient. I feel like sometimes I struggle to paint these on. I actually usually like to take the feathering off just so I can see what I am kind of marking. So this way I kind of have a little bit more of an orb to start with rather than her outline shape and the horse. But then when you feather it, I feel like that makes it so there's still kind of a clear focal point here, but it's now a little bit more hazy around the edges, so it's a little bit more blended. But let's see how that looks. So let's duplicate it. So we got the copy. We're going to drag that into the green channel. Then we're going to copy that copy from the green. And we're going to drag that right into the red. Okay, so you have the same thing dragged in, and that's the final result. So let's take a look and compare. So this would be you creating your own focal point. This was the before. This is the natural center focal point we created for you if you didn't want to tweak it. So this one I feel like has a little bit more space. To be honest, I probably could have made a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit less feathering. And actually you could go in and change it. So let's go in. So, but just remember, whatever you change, you want to do it to all of them. So I have the feathering at 100. Let's say I brought the feathering down to 70 just to see what that looks like. If I do the same thing in all three of them, so bringing it from 100 down to 70. I'm sure there's a faster way of doing this than what I'm doing, but this is just to illustrate the point. And then same thing, let's go back to 70. I feel like that's a little bit better maybe than what I had before because it's still a little blended. You can see her and the horse more clearly, but it's not quite so much of a cutout. And it's not so stark where there's no blending at all because you just created the subject. There might be a time where this would work, but I feel like for this particular image, this wouldn't be the direction I would go. But more than anything, I just wanted to illustrate how to go ahead and create your own focal points. So now you have an idea of how to do that. So just remember, you want to go into the masks, and whatever you do, duplicate the same thing into the blue, into the green, and into the red, and play with the feathering, and you'll figure out that right focal point that works for you. So if you've been watching the other tutorials, you've seen me do a quick rundown on what the 20 are, how to adjust the saturation, how to choose your focal point, and how to create your own focal point if you're not loving the 4 we provided for you. For this section, I'm just going to dive in and do some edits on some of my favorite images that I feel like lend themselves well to these effects and just show you what I would do and how they can look in different things. And that can maybe spark some ideas on what might lend itself best in your own work and how to make that happen for you. So let's actually start things off with, I feel like a detail shot is a good place to start. So for something like this, I chose this image because it's naturally a little bit ethereal. It's got some pinks and pastels in it. And it's pretty on its own. It's got this white background, and I love that the light is reflecting on to the shadow, but I feel like if we added a little bit more, it could look really good. So for something like this, I think all over would be too aggressive. Let's go with the center composition and adjust from there and talk about it. So for this one, applying it straight up, Aurora center, that's feeling a little bit aggressive. So I would definitely tone it down. Probably to like here, to be honest. So it just kind of adds a little bit more magic to the image, which I really love. This is before and after. And if you wanted it even more subtle, you can go even more subtle with it. So it really could just be barely a kiss of color, but I love that it creates this little rainbow on the flower itself. It's something that I feel like people wouldn't necessarily even realize you did it, but it just adds a little bit something more to your detail shots, and I love that. Especially with anything with a lot of negative space in the background or white space in particular. I feel like these these effects are really magical for that. But let's check out a couple other sections, a couple other of the effects. So pastel. I like this one. It's really subtle, but you can see right here. So before, after, if you take a look at the shadows in particular, I love the little rainbow here and what that looks like on here. Honestly, this is probably even more than Aurora on this particular image. I'd probably go with this because I love that it's just this kind of magical little extra element here. Let's go into Borealis and see what that looks like. You can make this one work. I feel like the 100% saturation is aggressive, so I'd probably bring it down to like maybe 51. That's kind of fun. Let's keep playing. Blue Borealis, really subtle on this one. Blue Borealis is one that really pops with the darker background. I'll show you that next just so you can see it. But I feel like on this one, you can definitely see that it touches, especially the shadows, a little bit on this stem. But for the most part, pretty subtle. But sometimes that's what you're going for. Like, just because you have an effect and can go 100 doesn't mean that you have to. Sometimes it's just adding that little subtle something that adds a little bit more magic to the image. Let's see next. Oil spill. This one's cool, but I feel like I don't love that it's hiding the shadows. This probably wouldn't be my effective choice unless I went really low. And even then, I'm like, I feel like I would use that one somewhere else, but I still think it could be cool. Oil slick could work. Still in those shadows. A little bit more pink. But I think that's kind of fun. Kind of makes everything a little bit less contrasty as well, which could be pretty if that's what you're going for. Holographic. I think that one's cool. Let's take a look at these other ones. I think iridescent, I don't love for this one. I feel like iridescent has a natural pink tone behind it, so usually I like to use that where there's already some warmth. Opalescent is fun. That's more just like the rainbow that comes from the corner. I feel like in this particular image, maybe it takes away from the focal point, so I probably wouldn't go with that. Pearlescent, I like. This one is really subtle, and I like that it's subtle. Like if you go to the before, you almost can't tell that there's a crazy difference. It just kind of is taking away some of that contrast, making it a little bit dreamier, a little bit softer, and then adding this very faint rainbow gradient into the shadows. But I really love that. I feel like so far I'm liking this one in pastel best for this image, just because that final effect, as a reminder, this was pastel. So pastel was even a little bit more saturated than pearlescent, but still kind of fun. Let's see, watercolor, subtle. Same kind of thing. A lot of these are pretty subtle, but I like that. And then some of them are a little bit more aggressive, like Aurora, Borealis, and then Sherbet. Those ones kind of hit you over the head more. Confetti is also a little bit one of the more aggressive ones. I'd probably tone this one down if this is one that I was playing with. Let's see. Yeah, I'd tone it down quite a bit. So it's just like a little bit extra kiss of color. But this is so fun. I actually haven't played with anything like this in Lightroom before. So it's exciting to me. I really like Rainbow Lights 1. I like this one is fun too. I like that especially compositionally. It's not over the drinks, so you could just kind of make it a little bit more subtle. And that just adds in another little element there, which is kind of funky. Let's check out Rainbow Lights 2. Sorry guys, I sound like a man. I have lost my voice. It is what it is. Fun. Suncatcher 1 and 2, very similar, just a slight shift in tone. Let's go with this one. And let's bring that saturation way down. This one I like, but I don't like it necessarily on this image. I'd probably apply it to something else, to be honest. Same with Supernova. I feel like I'm not going to love that here. Nah, I'd put it on something else. But Sherbet, maybe. That could be fun. I like Sherbet. It's just a little rainbow. Little rainbow gradient. Who doesn't love that? Subtle, but pretty. And then if you really wanted a prism... Oh, this is one where I could show you. So prism on the center and on the left, it's the same. It's right here. Whereas if you go in on the right... Oh, no, I lied. Sorry. Right is the same because the focal point is here. If you go on to the left... I promise I know what I'm talking about. Sorry. There we go. That moves it over to the other side. So you could play with it right there if you didn't want it to be here. You can decide which way you want the swoop to be, which is kind of fun. So that's a little detail shot, an example of that in action. Oh, this is what I was going to show you next. Okay, so you can already see right here, this is a darker image in the background, and this is how the presets take to that. I was playing with this earlier. Let's jump here so I can give you a more accurate idea. And let me show you Blue Borealis first. So you can kind of see right away that one shows up a lot more on a black backdrop than it ever did on the white. But that feels a little aggressive to me, so I'd probably tone it way down. let's add Aurora to one. Okay, that one. Oh, I don't want left. What am I doing? What am I even doing? Let's go back to center. If you go to Aurora here, same thing. I feel like that saturation went from being pretty in pastel on the white to like whew, super, super saturated. So I would definitely bring that way, way down. If that's what you're wanting to play with here. I feel like that's still a lot for this one. Pastel could be cool. Let's see what holographic looks like, maybe. Maybe. I think Blue Borealis was still my favorite one on this one. I think sometimes it's just like a little kiss of something. I'm curious to see what sherbet looks like. What does pearlescent look like, or opalescent? Okay, so that's the rainbow. Pearlescent is the more subtle. Be kind of fun though, if you're looking to play around with something. Okay, let's dive to something else. Let me show you. Let's do so many things. How does one decide? Let's do another landscape one. Another horse magic. Guys, I'm going to stick with the center composition. This is another example where I feel like this could be cool if you want it to be like a little bit more funky, but I feel like I'm losing a little bit of an idea of what's actually happening, so I'd want to go way more subtle with that. Let's see, pastel. This could be pretty. It's just like makes it a little bit dreamier and a little bit more rainbow on the horse, which is kind of interesting. Borealis is cool. It's giving Lisa Frank, if you know who that is. I feel like when I was a little girl, it's like rainbows and leopards and things. But I feel like you want a little bit more subtle, so maybe something here. Although, to be honest, the 100 is kind of fun, so you could play with that. Let's see, Blue Borealis, more subtle here. Whale spill, I don't love it on that one. Let's see. That could be fun. Watercolor. Maybe a rainbow lights. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so a lot of it is just trial and error. I'm just kind of figuring out what I like, what I think might add to the image. I feel like so far of all of these, I'm liking the Borealis one the best. I feel like that just dances around, and my eye is being drawn straight to her, which I enjoy. Let's jump into one of Tomas in Turkey. This is a film shot. And yeah, I'm going to say we're not going to want to do all over because then we're going to lose him. Yep. Let's try this center. So cool, but a little bit too aggressive in my opinion. I feel like my eye is now going up here rather than to him, so I probably wouldn't use Aurora on this one. But pastel, on the other hand, I like that it's just this little subtle kiss of these like rainbow gradients, but it's not over the top. That's cool. Same with Borealis. I'd probably bring it down a bit. Playing with all of that. Let's do some sherbet. Fun. Sherbet is like a rainbow ice cream, so I love that. Let's see. Let's do... I was playing with these earlier. It's a good example of one though. If you want to do the prism, so from the center right here, and I feel like that's a little too aggressive, so I'd bring it down to like maybe 35, 40. I think it's kind of fun. And let's see, let's do, that's my cat in the background. He's so vocal. It's really, honestly, it's a problem. Okay, let's jump into one of these guys and let's see what we can do here. So, same thing, pretty center composition. It's like the easiest most of the time. And then I'm going to desaturate quite a bit. I don't know. Let's try Supernova on this one. That could be cool. Ooh, yeah, it's really cool. So it's creating this like interesting shape around them. But kind of subtle. Let's try another example where Supernova might look cool. I feel like Supernova could work really well around maybe this one. Let's see what that looks like. The only thing I don't love is that his face is obscured here, so I'd probably go in and create a little custom mask for that. But actually, it's kind of fun if you wanted to create this shape around them. Let's see. Let's do, sorry, I'm jumping around everywhere, trying to decide what I want to show you. This guy. A little bit more subtle. Pretty. This is so exciting though. Like I'm already just thinking about all the possibilities with color, all the things we could create with these. It's a lot of fun. Detail shots, always a win. It's really easy to add a little bit of something. Like I like that. I like how subtle that is. I think that's kind of fun. This one, definitely a lot more aggressive, but kind of fun if you're going for a statement. Or you can make it really subtle. Kind of funky. Let's do something with our couple. I wonder what would look good with this one. Let's check it out. I'm wondering if iridescent might look really good on this one. Nah. Let's see. A lot of different ways you could go about it. So if you just want to add a little bit extra of this, it's almost like a light leak effect, but we're just playing with color as well, which I think is fun. If you had an effect with, let's do an example where you might want to do it all over. Let's see. No, these ones are all pretty center compositioned. Let's try, actually, let's switch gears and do one of these. I love this photo. So, same thing with the center. And I feel like a lot of these lend themselves to this one, so it's kind of just a question of what you prefer. Pastel, see how subtle that is. Borealis here, I definitely would bring down the saturation a bit. Although I kind of do love how fun the 100% saturation is. Blue Borealis doesn't really pop on this one, so I probably wouldn't put it on. Oil spill, if I was going to do that, I would bring the saturation down. Oil slick, subtle. Just a little bit. I feel like that might be a little bit too much, though. I'd probably bring that one down as well. This one you can see the colors are mostly down here. Iridescence, more pink. Opalescent has the rainbow right in the corner. So if you wanted to bring that down, you could. Compared to the prism, they're not the same. It's a different rainbow. Like that, so you can kind of see the difference there. How they're measured out. Fire opal. This one looks a lot like a film light leak. Kind of fun though. You can play with that. Or rainbow lights. And a lot of these are one click. Like I wouldn't even really mess with the saturation on that one. I think it's cool as is. Rainbow lights too. I might bring down the saturation a little bit. Just check out confetti. I like a little rainbow colors around. Let's see. Supernova. All the fun things. If you want to bring that down, you can. Make it a little bit more subtle. You could make it even more subtle if you wanted. It's just very faintly a rainbow. But I kind of love it. I kind of love what it does to the shadows. I think that's so fun. Let's check out this guy. Let's go from the top and kind of play around with it. Okay, so for me, I feel like this is way too much. So I'd want to bring that like way, way down. And even then, I'm like, I feel like that's a little muddy. So let's check out another one. Pastel, I like that a lot better. I feel like that's just a little bit more subtle. Kind of adding a little bit of a rainbow, but nothing crazy. I feel like you could even go a little bit less with it. So it's just barely touching it. Borealis, same thing. That's going to be aggressive. So let's bring it way down. Let's see what Blue Borealis looks like on this one. Will that one pop? Blue Borealis shows up a little bit more on this one. Kind of pretty. It's got that oil spill effect to it. I can bring it down a bit. or keep it all the way up. Let's see what else we got here. Rainbow lights. Probably bring this down. If you made it this far, thanks, because I'm just talking to myself right now with my cat. So that's awesome. Sherbet. You know, little rainbow. Little subtle rainbowness. But yeah, hopefully this just gives you an idea of some different ways you can play with these. Like, I feel like they do lend themselves to a lot of different types of images. I think objects especially, because, you know, you don't have to deal with faces being covered by a specific color, but I think even with faces you can make it work. I think especially if there's a lot of negative space. So if it's something like this, you could apply it all over and that could be the vibe you're going for. Or you can need to create a virtual copy. Pick some kind of composition. Or let's say I really, really, really wanted those glasses to be more prevalent, then I could do the left composition and make it more subtle here. And you just kind of play with it from there. But anyway, don't forget to tag us. I cannot wait to see what you've been creating and what you create. Let us know if you have any questions, and I hope you have the most fun playing with Aurora. I feel like at the end of the day, the reason why we created this is just to level up your photos, give yourself a chance to experiment more, to play more with color, see what that does, just because you can, playing with the effects. And if you have any requests for future stuff, we're all ears. We're in the midst of creating a bunch of things right now. So anyway, very excited, but thank you for purchasing, and I hope you love these as much as I do.